Everyone, and welcome back to On the Curbs IndyCar. I'm your host, Nate Woods, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Thiemo Albers-Daly. Thiemo, how are we doing today?
Getting by, getting by. How are you?
Still trying to recover from a weekend in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you were trackside, even if you didn't see all of the track at various points, but we will get into that, I'm sure. But it was obviously the Washington D.C. race, the Freedom 250, the one-off that may not come back at any point. There are also rumblings of them trying to bring it back immediately, so we really don't know what's going on there, but we'll find out in due course. But yeah, what were your impressions before we get into anything that even resembled a team by team analysis? We had you trackside-ish. Tell us everything.
Went to Washington, D.C. I've got a brother and family that live in Washington, D.C. So when they announced that they were doing this, naturally, I'm like, oh yeah, like I gotta do this,
It'd be
and
rude not to.
yeah, and ended up getting tickets, and so got to take nieces and nephew and brother and sister-in-law to the track, and um, drove out from Indianapolis to Washington D.C. on Friday, which is almost a full day drive. Took us about 11 and a half hours to get there, and then turned around Monday and drove it back, and so
Do not envy you that.
it was a quick weekend with a quick turnaround, but it was a lot of fun. The the crowd was um, very reminiscent of a qualifying day at Indianapolis.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is it felt like a big infield. And with in DC it was a lottery that you went into. You just they were the tickets were free. They had like 250,000 people apply for tickets, and they were only giving out 100,000. And um, my worry was, oh, all these people are going to apply for free tickets. They're going to get them, and they were like, well, these tickets were free, and
I'm not going to turn up then.
if I don't go to DC, it's not going to be a big deal, and then they don't go.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the case, but it's hard to gauge because the event center was one big infield, we'll say. Um, there weren't a lot of seats available. Bleacher seating was first come, first serve and was incredibly limited. They had 100,000 free seats and maybe bleacher seats for maybe 5,000.
And because I have absolutely no idea, and I don't mind admitting that, what on earth is a bleacher seat?
So like grandstands, like temporary
No, grandstand.
grandstands. Yeah,
Grandstand.
grandstands.
You learn American
And,
all the time.
and they had some viewing platforms, which were basically just like a two-tiered area where you can just stand and be 3 feet higher off the ground.
Hmm.
Um, but then also they had huge grass areas that were set up with big tents with tables and chairs under them, uh, picnic tables with umbrellas. Uh, they had a lot of games set up, surprisingly. Like
Maybe left over
feed
from the state fair. Who knows? It was
could
nearby,
be,
right?
and they looked pretty new, so I'm guessing they were leftovers from some other event, or maybe the National Mall owns them and brings them out for big events. But there was a lot of things to do, a lot of people to talk to. It was great getting to talk with uh, casual fans where they might
Hmm.
have caught some races on TV, or they watched the Indy 500 every year on TV, and now there was a race in their backyard and they came to DC to watch one. Um, and so it was cool to kind of like you felt like an ambassador of the sport at that point, where I mean, I talked to people from Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, but I also ran into people from around Indianapolis and around Indiana, and so
We
um,
should have thought about this a bit more in advance and got you a T-shirt with on the Curbs IndyCar on the back, and just have you as this
yeah.
this official unofficial ambassador.
Ask me anything. I'm here to help. The event as a whole was run pretty well. Um, The one problem I would say was that the race started around 1:15 Eastern time, and
Hmm.
the permits for selling food and beer were only through 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That seems like a strange oversight.
Yeah. And so um, you definitely saw the crowd thin out at 3.
Yeah.
And when there was no longer food available or beer available or water available, the only thing that you could still get after 3 o'clock was Java House coffee. They had a big booth there giving away free samples. So that was the only thing you could get after 3 o'clock, at least in my
Well,
area.
at least it was something on brand for IndyCar, at least for those that will understand the reference. Because everyone else going, why are they so obsessed with Java House? What's going on here?
Yeah. Why is there so much coffee at the racetrack? Yeah, I think in all, it was a good weekend. Um, it was easy to get in and out of. I mean, I'm used to going to the Indy 500 where, you know, after the race, there's 350,000 people trying to get out of a town with just
Yeah,
normal city streets going everywhere. And you know, it takes me, it took me 2.5 hours to get home from the Indy 500 this year.
which
And
is ridiculous when people realize how close to the track you live.
yeah, it's only a 7 mile
Ordinarily,
drive. Yeah, 7 mile drive, maybe 8 mile drive. And yeah, 2.5 hours to get out of Speedway. Where with this, we parked outside of town, got on the metro train, took it in, and got off at our stop, and it was right at the gate. You came up the escalator out of the subway station, and the gate was literally right at the top of the escalator. So
hmm.
worked out magnificent and easy to get back on the train after the race. And it was definitely a neat experience. I don't know if I'm torn on whether or not it would be successful again.
Right. Because it sounds like the good stuff was good, the bad stuff was bad and kind of basic in its badness in terms of what they fumbled on.
Mhm.
And we talked about this way back at the start of the year when it was announced as a race and how quickly everything was being thrown together. And one of your concerns, I remember at the time, and one of mine as well, to be fair, was is it going to be enough time to organize everything to the same
Mhm.
standard that you would see at a separate IndyCar race? Because it's one thing to throw an event together, like a concert or, just an automobile show of some other kind where there isn't active racing going on. But then when you have IndyCar and there were other races going on, if I'm not mistaken, across the weekend on this circuit,
Mhm.
um, you kind of want there to be a bit more put togetherness and what you say about the food and drink and the seating that strikes me as something that you more likely want to get that stuff right because that's the basic stuff that will attract people and
Yeah.
keep them there. And you will be if there's not as many games to play, that's all right because we've at least got some beer and we can have a chat.
Yeah.
So it's interesting in that regard. But again, it's meant to be built as a one-off, and we were talking about this after marketing going. Going to be interesting to see how we assess all of this because if it's terrible, if it's the worst thing we've ever seen, then ultimately it doesn't matter either way, even if it's the best thing because it's not happening again, right? So it's that then we hear this debate about maybe we could bring it back, maybe we don't, and there's this discussion now, and you go, well, if you do, you got to learn a few lessons.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it. The highs were great. The lows were to be expected for a first time event. So I think the product on TV was was pretty good, and
It looked like a
uh,
normal IndyCar race in terms of
it
what you'd
looked
come to expect with the
it looked like
presentation, the
it. Yeah,
commentary, the racing. So,
yeah. I went back and watched the full replay, and it felt like a real IndyCar race, or
hmm,
just what you would normally expect to see at St. Pete or Long Beach. And
yeah.
so um, so from that standpoint, I think it's great. The TV ratings were way, way, way up for this race.
Hmm.
I
I mean, it's
wrote
got
down
that
some,
uniqueness in the same way that the Indy 500 kind of does, but it's a
yeah,
one-off event, you know.
yeah. I wrote down some fun facts for this race that I'd kind of pulled together from a couple different sources. The 249.9 mile race that we had was the longest ever street course that we had
So you're
had in
saying
IndyCar
that the,
history.
the, the Freedom 250 wasn't technically 250 miles.
It wasn't 250 miles. Um, and it was the longest non-oval race since 1983 when we ran 500 kilometers at Riverside in California.
What was the reasoning for that at that point, or was that just an ordinary race and it just happened to be a long, long race?
Um, IndyCar races, they used to run longer races. And I think part of it is um, when you started getting more and more TV deals and more races got put on TV, people weren't wanting to sit through a 4 hour IndyCar race.
Gotcha.
And so I think that was probably part of why we saw uh, races get a little bit shorter over the years. Other than the big one, the Indy 500,
Yeah, yeah.
but but still, I mean, this race was, I mean, it was 2 hours and 45 minutes, I think. Let me see what the race duration
And
was.
so close. It could have been 2 hours 50 as well, but they just fell short of that as well.
Two
They're
two
just so
hours
close
and
on the numbers.
yeah, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Um, and it
Could have
didn't
done with that extra
necessarily
caution just to get the 10 minutes up there.
it didn't feel that long of a race when I
Hmm.
was there in person. Now, watching it on TV, I'm sure it was probably a little bit different, but uh, it was uh, it didn't feel like an almost 3 hour long race. So
I think that's good though, because you don't want to be standing there looking at your watch
yeah.
going, geez, how long is this going on for?
Now, I will say that there was a lot to look at when you're sitting in a big field and there's, 30,000 people wandering around, and the people watching was fantastic. Uh,
Always is.
um, yeah, and of course they had big jumbotron set up, and they were showing the Fox broadcast on the jumbotrons, and so we had a big, huge television right in front of us, and so it wasn't like we were missing anything. We could hear the cars go past because we were only maybe 40 yards from the
Hmm.
track
Which
surface
part of the
itself.
track
So,
were you on or near to?
um, so we were in the I was in the stars section, which was the outside of the track section. My mom had tickets in the uh, stripe section, which was on the inside of the track. And
Okay.
so their experience was a little bit different than ours. I think we probably got the better end of the deal, but
Okay.
uh, I think that the outside of the track was definitely the place to be, especially when you were trying to get in and out
Sure.
of the circuit. So um, the this was and I didn't realize this until I started thinking about it, was this was the first IndyCar race that a sitting president had attended.
Which is surprising and not surprising at the same time, because on the one hand, surprising because you would just assume at some point, if
At some
IndyCar's been
point,
going long enough, it would have just
somebody
happened
somebody
for
would have
for an
come
Indy
to the Indy
500.
500. Yeah,
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 exactly.
and
How do you make it even more American? You go when your poll numbers are very high at the start of your term or whatever, and you pop along for it. It's you
yeah,
see them to do that with baseball games, but not IndyCar. It
yeah,
looks like.
yeah. And I can only think of a few presidents that have attended NASCAR races.
Hmm.
Um, George W. Bush, Donald Trump, I believe Ronald Reagan are the three that come to mind.
Those all make
Um,
sense to me.
but uh, all of them of which were the Daytona 500, I believe. So
Which again makes sense in terms of if you
yeah,
were going to go to one.
yeah. The the days leading up to the race, like Friday, Saturday, um, Fox News, I think, played a big role in driving people to Fox to watch the race because they were in the nation's capital. The race was heavily politicized leading up to it with people saying, "Oh, this is a vanity project for Donald Trump," and this, that, and the other. And I'm not
It
here
was
to
the sort
get
of coverage where there's no bad thing as there's no such thing rather as bad publicity because it at least gets your eyeballs on there and everyone's talking about it. And if you're Fox, you also own a stake in IndyCar as well, then you
exactly
don't really care what they're talking about if it's good or bad as long as they are watching.
as long as they're talking about it.
Hmm.
And I don't want to politicize the conversation, but the the viewership numbers for this race, 3.28 million viewers, which is the best non-Indy 500 IndyCar race in over 30 years. It goes
That
back
doesn't
to the
surprise me, to be honest, because I think, again, it goes back to the people who tune in to see how bad it is or to see how good it is so that they can have something to say about it. Or you'll just have those casual fans, like you say, where they know that it's supposedly a one-off event
yeah,
and you just want to be part of that. It's like the Super Bowl or something like this. You're going to get
yeah,
these higher ratings as a result. But it's interesting that it is, that significant a number in over such a long period of time.
yeah. You have, I think, when talking about the Fox News aspect, because they had on when I watched Friday morning before we left, or actually it was Thursday night before we left. They had on a couple drivers and interviewed them. Saturday morning they had on Alex Pillow. They had on um, Kyle Kirkwood. They had Chip Ganassi on. All of them for sit down interviews at the track. And the morning broadcast took place at the track Saturday.
There's no news
And
today. It is just
yeah,
IndyCar.
yeah, it's just IndyCar. And so Fox News has a demographic um, that's, I would say 40 to 65 years of age,
Mm.
um, and of a certain political party that aligns with Trump, we'll say. And for 36 hours leading up to the race, Fox News covered so much of this event that I think a lot of these viewers were maybe less than casual IndyCar fans. These were people that were maybe seeing an event for the first time because they had seen such a big buildup to it, which is not bad because
Mm.
we immediately
We
go
just don't
into
expect that retention to come into this weekend in
don't
Milwaukee.
expect, don't expect 3.2 million people to tune in for a Saturday night race in
I
Milwaukee.
mean, heck,
So
I'd love it if that was the case, and I'd love
if
us
that
to
was
get
the
to that
case, that'd be
point. I just don't
great.
see it happening immediately.
um, I guess this is a Saturday afternoon race. It's not even a Saturday night race this year, um, but yeah, so it's great from that standpoint. I think the numbers are greatly inflated based on if this was just a regular IndyCar race. Like if this
Yeah,
race
you have to
was,
take the context into
yeah,
consideration.
60 miles up the road in Baltimore, if they would announce we're going to have the Freedom 250 in Baltimore, and you wouldn't had nearly as many viewers, even if you had the president there, even if Fox had tuned Fox News and said, "Hey, this is all the coverage, and here's all the people that are going to be in the race, and we're interviewing, Stingray Rob next," and uh, uh, I, yeah, it just you wouldn't have seen the same numbers.
I think the part of it as well is the fact that you had on the iRacing, circuit guide as well. You had all the pop-ups of all the significant locations it was running past as you
Mhm.
go through the circuit as well. And nothing against Baltimore, just the example we're using here, but it doesn't have the Capitol building. It doesn't have the Space Museum. It doesn't have Lincoln's Memorial. So you kind of have uniqueness built into and baked into the product, and you got that was the interesting thing because you have obviously the all of these things thrown at you over the course of the build up in the weeks and months beforehand, and then in the days, as you were saying. Then when you're watching the broadcast, only real significance that you could tell it was Washington D.C. from an outside American perspective, and someone who doesn't know it would be the Capitol building. You have the panning of that,
The
but then
flyover, yeah,
yeah,
the kind of
the flyover job you
yeah,
kind of you see it from that shot, but everything else this could be anywhere. This could be
yeah,
Chicago, this could be
mhm,
somewhere completely different.
yeah.
Um, and I found that interesting because I thought you leaned into that element so heavily, and yet if you took the capital shots out of it, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. Yeah. One other interesting fact that I had written down about this race was this is the first IndyCar race to be run on American soil without being contested in a U.S. state since 1909.
Just when I think you can't come out with a more obscure fact for me, you manage it.
Yes.
So explain away this one.
So in 1909, we had a race called the Cactus Derby, which was a point-to-point race from LA, California to Phoenix, Arizona. And this would have taken place 3 years before Arizona became a state.
Back when IndyCar was still figuring out what the heck it was doing.
Yeah, and this, 2 years before we even had the Indy 500. So,
Yeah,
so I thought that was pretty interesting, and I found out a new little tidbit. Now, finding information about the Cactus Derby in 1909 did prove to be a
feel a
little
bit
bit
of
of a
research coming on for
challenge.
an obscure article at some point
Yeah,
soon.
I was not able to find much information on this race in a cursory look. I'd have to do a deep dive
We'd
to,
have to go to
to
Phoenix probably and go, can we look in your archives?
yeah.
Do you have anything even?
Do you got any photographs of this race at all? But yeah, let's jump into the race itself. We've talked about, you know, the venue and the broadcast and uh the experience,
We're
but
taking a closer look now. We're
yes.
going from we've had the wide view. We'll take a little bit closer, and then we'll get to teams, and then we're done.
Yeah. So, Team Penske, Joseph Newgarden qualifying 14th and finishing 8th. Scott McLaughlin qualified really well in third, but had a late race incident, finishes 22nd. Dave Malukas qualifies 6th and has an early race incident, finishes 24th.
Yeah, for me, I was reminded when McLaughlin took himself out of the race essentially. With a little bit of debate that I'll get back to in a second, he was emulating our discussion about Louis Foster from Markham, where if
From
you're going to
Markham.
go out of a race, at least do it in in attempting an overtake and trying to go for something. I
Yeah.
still feel annoyed with both of them that they didn't have the foresight to think this wasn't going to work in quite the way we wanted to. More so with McLaughlin and Foster just because of the experience level. I also think with the way that McLaughlin went about his overtake, I feel like Kirkwood was a little bit to blame for it because he did come back over a bit. Suddenly it was all right. But I just thought if he hadn't come over it quite so suddenly in the way they did, McLaughlin wouldn't. If he had no other choice but to jump out and go for it, otherwise he would have gone into the back of him and he would have been out anyway. So I feel like he was in a bit of a between a rock and a hard place there, but it was just on the line, I think. But such a shame to see
I
him go
have
out at
to,
that point.
yeah, I always have to disagree with you there. McLaughlin was coming in too hot, and I it
There was that
was
element as well, but I feel like
yeah,
whichever way he was going, it wasn't going to go well. I'm just like,
yeah.
Kirkwood.
I don't know if Kirkwood could have done anything different there that would have resulted in an outcome of McLaughlin not ending up in the wall, but um,
If he'd stayed on his line instead of coming back, I think McLaughlin probably still would have gone into the tire barrier on the outside, but had gone from it
yeah,
from a different angle. But the way he moved, it made me think, oh, McLaughlin has no choice now. He's screwed either way.
yeah. Yeah, it was. You're right, but from the standpoint of if you're going to crash, do it while you're fighting for the lead,
Yeah,
and um, you
still
know,
frustrates me because he was doing so well up to that point, and I wanted him to win. But because it's been so
it,
long, we saw obviously Ericsson has this long drought. He wins in Mark. I'm like, oh, can we get two back to back for race droughts? No, no, we can't.
it looked good on TV. It was exciting. Say
Yeah,
that. um, Newgarden, he just kind of had a regular day. I don't remember seeing him up
he had a
near
couple of
the
good
front
overtakes.
and uh, going back through kind of when you're at the racetrack, seeing the race live, and then you go back and watch the replay of the race afterwards, you're kind of gloss over a lot of things. So, maybe I just missed him on track during the broadcast and didn't see those great overtakes. But yeah, just I mean, all in
He
all,
was a
man,
little
finishes
anonymous,
eighth.
but in a race like this, you don't mind that because you just want to survive one of these sorts of
Well,
races where there's so much calamity going on.
there was definitely several drivers that I'd say just kept their head down all race and were rewarded with a good finish. But
And you
uh,
see that in the opposite with his two teammates as well. You know,
yeah,
often we talk about Malukas crashing out as well. Newgarden's going, I'm just going to try and no one look at me. I'm just going to drive and keep on going. And I'll just make a couple of neat moves here and there, but I'm not going to do anything too outrageous. And just 14th to 8th, not bad for one of these style races. And to me, the interesting thing with Malukas, aside from being glad that I'd swapped him out of my fancy team after being certain I had him in there, um, is it feels like the second half of the season, he and Power have just whatever
kind of
curse Power had,
switched
Malukas now
roles.
has it.
Yeah, switched
And I go,
roles. Yeah.
I don't know if you're getting that win this season, Nate. It's
Yeah,
we're
we
running
might
out of
have to wait.
races.
Yeah, yeah. That was a scary incident with Malukas.
Mm.
Um,
And
uh,
Rob more than Malukas in a lot of ways because
yeah,
it's bad. Obviously, Malukas' position there, but Rob,
mm,
he's it's weird for us to feel sympathy for him, but it's really
yeah,
just not his
yeah.
fault at all.
It wasn't his fault, and it's been a long time since I've seen a kind of T-bone accident like that
Mm.
with a stationary car and another car coming in this series anyway. I feel like we've
Yeah,
seen it a good number of times in F1. I feel it feels like so,
probably don't
but
have to go back that far.
yeah, they uh, it was I would say probably other than uh, McLaughlin's accident at the end of the race, this was the incident that got the crowd like, oh,
Mm.
kind of like excited, not excited, but got them to their
Got a
feet and
reaction.
got a reaction. And, uh, for good or for worse anyway. Um, but yeah, I'm glad that Malukas wasn't injured. I'm glad Stingray Rob was okay. But
I'd
just,
say Malukas as well. He's already carrying remnants of a past
right.
injury as it is. He doesn't
Yeah,
need more of
right.
that.
Exactly. Yeah. But, uh, yeah, I mean, this was probably not the weekend that Roger wanted for his team
No,
after plopping down $35 million to put on the event. But yeah, we're going to another track where
very much
he's
felt like an
traditionally
episode
been
of Pawn
strong.
Stars. We can offer you this one in a lifetime race, but you're not
Yeah,
winning it.
because you're not going to win. Arrow McLaren, Petto Award qualifying seventh, finishing 16th, a lap down. Christian Lundgaard qualifying ninth and finishing on the podium in second. And Nolan Siegel starting 18th and finishing sixth.
So again, I have a case where the two drivers who are exiting the team for no kind of reason for themselves
Yeah.
have chosen this path, doing better than the guy that was all supposedly meant to be really hard on. And fresh
Mhm.
from my praise for him and Markham last week, Warden does this. And I go, I try hard to give you the benefit of the doubt, and then look what happens. I did love the fact that they just Lundgaard and Siegel is just rubbing the salt in the wounds for Aaron
Yes,
McLaren.
they
Ever
are.
since that announcement, they've had more good races than bad in
Yep.
comparison to what their standard is, and it's just so fun to watch that. And other drivers that we'll get to that had not great results but finished. You go, okay, they had an issue of whatever kind. I'm not sure what it was. The issue was. I've not seen anything. Maybe I've missed something. Maybe you saw something, but it just looked like he was just slow.
He had a lot of pit stops. I know. He had
Who
eight
didn't?
stops on the day. Well, most of your drivers in the top 10,
Well, again, this is supposedly, a
only had
top
three
team with a
stops.
top driver. You should be able to sort
Yeah.
your strategy out where you can figure it out, not needing to do that many.
Yeah. Let's see. Pedal Award had the second most pit stops on the day with eight. So definitely some kind of mechanical or electrical issue. I'm sure they were working
So
through.
that's what they're hoping it'll be.
Yeah, we
That's what
never
they're going
really
to be pushing
saw.
out as much as we can.
We had two early cautions in this race that were for debris on track. So I don't know if
Mm.
that came from his car
Are you being paid by Aaron McLaren to be a nice spokesperson here to help smooth things over?
we don't need to smooth things over when two of the three drivers had great days, though. So yeah,
It's
team as
said
a
like a
whole.
PR man, if ever there was one.
Yeah, it was um, uh, really cool to see Lundgaard up there. I mean, this is a guy that we don't know 100% yet where
Hmm.
he's going, but we have a pretty good idea at
He
this point
deserves that
that
CGR seat.
yeah, we have a pretty good inclining that he's taking Dixon's seat at Chip Ganassi. Although it hasn't been announced yet. I think everybody in the
Give it five
paddocks,
minutes after this podcast, as
yeah,
usual.
yeah. um, Coming out and finishing second. I mean, this guy has been probably probably the best road and street course driver we've had this year. And in total finishes. I don't know. Has there been one where he hasn't had a good finish? For this team to be getting rid of him, it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I don't think
Especially
it's
when
ever going to
he's
make sense.
when he's running third in the points. He's only 19 points behind Kyle Kirkwood, and
Hmm.
that's only
It,
because
it still could be his,
that's I think that only reason why he's 19 points back from Kyle Kirkwood at this point is because Kyle Kirkwood finished one place better than him in the race.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Siegel looked really great, and he was fun to watch, and I almost found myself rooting for him. Him and Ericsson kind of
Almost.
teamed up almost. Uh, Him and Ericsson did a really good job of working together to move up through the field, which was neat to see. Um, we're I'm not at the point where I'm ready to say, oh, Errol McLaren made the wrong move of getting rid of Nolan Siegel, but when we found out that he wasn't returning to this team next year and he was going to be looking for a ride somewhere else, um, when we first found that, it's like, oh, well, Nolan Siegel, we've clowned on him for a couple of years now. He's not going to find a seat anywhere. He's making a very
There,
compelling argument here in the last several races that this is a guy that probably does deserve a seat. Now, obviously, he brings some money to the table, which always makes him more
again,
attractive, um, uh, especially for a smaller team. I don't know if we can expect results like this from him at a new team next year, but it's great to see that he's I would say from his standpoint, even though he's at Aero McLaren currently, that he's punching above his weight class.
yeah, he's doing what he can to make them debate whether or not it was a good idea to get rid of him because,
Yeah,
if we look purely on results, he finished ahead of Rosenquist on this one.
exactly. Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, he finished ahead of Dixon
And
as
Scott
well by
Dixon.
one
Yeah.
position, which is
Yeah.
not a sentence we thought we would say coming into this weekend.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so from that point of view, hire the man somewhat. He's doing better
Yeah.
than Dixon and Rosenquist.
That's right.
Um, but I think we've talked about it before. I won't go into it too much again. But it was the circumstance under which he was brought in the first place, how much Tony Kanaan was invested supposedly in him, and then to see all that thrown away, and there was that frustration and go, okay, yeah, he's not there, but it's the same thing we say about Simpson all the time with Palou and Dixon. You're not expecting him to be on the same level as his counterparts in the team. So don't stop trying to measure him that way. And so when he's able to bring out performances like this, and he's not, succumb to the pressure of being out of a seat, which is nice to see because you don't always get that you either get when a driver is released, you either see them perform at their best, or they compound and you go, yeah, that's fair enough. We can see why you're getting rid of this driver.
Yeah.
So it was just nice to see, best results here for him ahead of both of the drivers and Pato for extra sort of wins. And then Christian obviously does the same thing, beats all three drivers that you want to be ahead of if you're him.
Yeah. This team has felt lost for several seasons. They just can't figure out the formula. I don't want to say that
they're not
stems
bad,
back.
but they're not great. They're just there.
And I don't want to say this stems from them losing the Alex Palou lottery, but
you do wonder how different it would have been though, because we've seen such a capable driver with Lundgaard and supposedly Pato at points. I've missed that clearly, but you do wonder, would Palou be as good with the machinery and the setup and the strategy as has been, or is it just Chip has been able to get such a great team together in that one place? Because obviously it's not just the driver. Obviously Palou does a lot, but I wonder, would we be talking about Palou in the same way that we talk about him now, or would we have had a championship with him, but three other champions in different years then? Would Kirkwood have been one last year? Would Power have won one year? Who knows?
Yeah, there's no telling. Andretti Global, super weekend for this team. Will Power qualifying 12th, finishing on the podium in third. Kyle Kirkwood starting second, obviously finishing first is our race winner. And Marcus Ericsson qualifying 21st and then making his way all the way up to fourth.
Yeah, like you say, another fantastic day for the team, really. And the only thing I can fault them is for qualifying, Power and Ericsson. But if you're going to drive like that during the race, who gives a shit where you start on Saturday, where you qualify on Saturday? If you do this on Sunday, it's great to watch.
We've seen it many times in recent weeks where a driver starting at the rear of the field or towards the back makes his way up to the front. So,
yeah. And Power seems to be making a bit of a habit of it, which I'm here for. So it's great. I'm loving all of this, and I said it last week about Ericsson. I'll say it again this week about him. It's his performance is what I want to see from Pato next. I've been wondering for ages what all the fuss was about with Ericsson because he did everything before I started watching IndyCar, and now I just need Pato to get on board that train and go, I need you to remind everyone because I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing.
With Will Power, he jumped onto a different pit strategy. And this race, speaking of pit strategy, there wasn't a lot of pit strategy in this race. I think we had enough caution flags, kind of back to back at different points during the race where strategy and making the calls on when you come in for tires and come in for gas didn't necessarily play as much into this race as some of the other races we've had this season. But
all three of them did have different strategies, but they all just, like you say, they just converged at some point. You go, well, they've all worked in theory, but now it doesn't really make a difference. So we're just going to just go for it.
But this is a team that, up until 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were clowning on week in and week out for why did they do this on their strategy? Why do they not have good pit stops? Why can they not
been doing that one for quite a while, to be fair.
Why can't they hire Nate Woods as a tire changer? But they've had a real marked turnaround in the second half of the season, which very obviously they needed. But Kirkwood looked so dominant, and it's the first time in recent memory that I can think of where a driver other than Alex Palou had such a dominant race.
I hesitate to say it, but I think I'm accurate in saying the last time he looked this good was Arlington. He had Palou ahead of him, but he just dispatched him with such ease on that occasion, hunting him down, making that bold move on him, and then going on and disappearing into the distance. Here, I don't think it would have mattered whether Palou was having his day of days or not. Kirkwood was winning it. And
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that frustrates me still with Kirkwood is that, oh, you can do this. Why are we not doing this more often? We'd have more of a championship battle here. And he did what he needed to do when Flo had a bad day today, but he doesn't do it often enough. And so while the championship lead that Flo has fallen, which is a rare sentence as well to say,
Yeah.
it's still 91 points or something silly.
91
and you go,
points, yeah.
You're just giving us this annoying tease of hope that something could happen here. I don't think it's going to, but just makes you frustrated going, because we said this last year, he just needs that consistency a bit more, and we're still saying the same thing 12 months later.
Yeah. Yeah. This uncharacteristic day for Palou, but and we'll get to him in a second, but Kyle Kirkwood and Christian Lundgaard are both doing exactly what they need to do. When
I agree.
Palou's not having a good day, which is rare, you have to take advantage. And then the two guys
you see this sometimes where they do good but not good enough, and you go, we need them.
They can't do any better. They finished first and second.
Oh yeah, but this is the time where we can say that and go, yes, this is what we need from you on those other occasions. So let's do this, copy paste.
Yeah. So, for me, it didn't feel like Kirkwood, when I was there watching the race, Kirkwood led a lot of laps, but the way that the cautions fell and the pit sequencing happened, it didn't feel like he was a true runaway victor. Then you go back and look at the stat line. We ran 147 laps and he led 128 of them. Like crap, he led almost the entire race. And so, after he passed Palou for the lead on what? Turn 3?
Yeah, pretty early doors.
On the first lap. And so, you knew it was something right then and there. You're like, okay, you're passing Palou this early in the race and you're pulling away. Yeah, this is your race to lose.
There's something on today.
He wasn't going to do it. So, Ericsson for me was probably the most impressive of the team. Watching him get through the field, it really, we kind of questioned why Andretti was choosing to retain Ericsson. It's kind of one of those drivers that you were talking about. Oh, you've heard how good they were, but that was in the past before you were fully on board with the sport. And we've had a couple races now where we've, the last couple of weeks for him have been really showing us why Andretti chose to keep him.
Yeah, it's making a lot of sense now, and I'm enjoying that. I'd like to see that. I want to see that, and the next team that we're talking about in a moment, Ganassi, they have a driver there who is moving over to Arrow McLaren, who, if it wasn't for Pato, would maybe be getting nearer on my list of I need to see a little bit more soon, and maybe I've jumped into the series at a point where we've talked about it before. Scott Dixon is done doing Scott Dixon things, and we need a little bit more of that old Scott Dixon back this year, because I've seen those flashes, but this year in particular, we haven't really seen too much of him. He had that one podium early in the season, but that was about it. But luckily for me, he's got all these championships and all these wins to his name, and that carries a lot more. Pato obviously doesn't have any of that. He's got the wins, but not anywhere near as many. Or even one championship, never mind 6. So it's interesting to then see that from Ericsson. I go, right, he started that ball, now pass that to the next person so we can get this, because I want to see all of these things. But like you say, it's great to see that with Ericsson. I hope that continues now. We've got 2 ovals. The last time we saw him on an oval was admittedly Nashville, but I'm not thinking of St. Louis, and I'm thinking, yeah, that'd be pretty nice to see that Ericsson back again for the two oval races. I'm up for that.
Yeah, we saw him in Nashville was our last oval, and he finished sixth.
Also, not bad. So I'm
Yeah.
just I'd like a bit more of that. Keep it going.
So, one interesting stat line I saw about Andretti is we've had 3 new tracks
Mm,
on the calendar this
so
season with Arlington, Markham, and DC, and Andretti won all 3 of them.
you're going to be a little bit annoyed if you will power, but he was on the
Yeah,
podium for all 3, so he's
that's
also not
true.
done too
Yeah,
badly there
yeah,
either.
he's also done pretty well. You mentioned Scott Dixon. That brings us to Chip Ganassi Racing. Um, I think the team was kind of the reverse of where it's been recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Alex
You come in, you've got
Palou,
you've got a team with Alex Palou, and somehow Kiffin Simpson's the best driver of the weekend.
you got Alex Palou qualifying on the pole and finishing 20th. Scott Dixon qualifying 13th and finishing 7th. And Kiffin Simpson, awesome day for him, qualifying 23rd and finishing 5th.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding. He's coming along very nicely. Again, not to repeat what we've said many times before, but I'll be interested to see how far that goes. I'm not expecting miracles, but I'm liking the direction it's going at the moment and see what that will look like. Dixon, it was nice to see him having a strong race again because it's been a little while since I feel like we've been able to talk about him overly positively. He's just been sort of around and there, especially since
Yep.
the announcement that he's leaving. Whereas Palou, my days, what on earth was all of that? It was just a series of unfortunate events, one thing after another. The pit lane incident with Schumacher's tire, that was just
Mhm.
uncharacteristic in itself. But then, having a street circuit catch him out and for him to have 2 back-to-back not great races is very uncharacteristic of him. And we said, I think, after Portland, it's going to be interesting to see which drivers can carry positive momentum throughout this last stretch of the season, in which are not able to banish the negative stuff, And Palou's in a little bit of a flunk right now, and he doesn't have a long time to get around it. And ovals are, he's better at them than he used to be, but they're still not his perfect kind of circuit that he needs. The only one of that's coming up to the goodness sake of it. He's still got to get through two rounds of Milwaukee first. So it could be interesting time the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. For me, you mentioned with Palou and his drive-through penalty for hitting Schumacher's tire in pit lane. He also had an emergency pit stop penalty in the
Mm,
race
yeah,
towards the end, which they didn't really talk about during the broadcast. I found it in the post-race reports, but um, uh, there were a couple drivers that got
just
caught up there
insult
at
to
the end.
injury at that point with him. It
Yeah,
wasn't going to do much, but he's already a lap down, which again is not something you hear very often.
right. Yeah, it was an off day for him. Dixon was just kind of quietly made his way into the top 10, was never really a threat, but
He did what
Kiffin
you guys did.
Simpson,
It felt like he was just there
yeah,
going, "Please, no one notice me. Please, no one notice me."
yeah. But Kiffin Simpson was another driver like Ericsson and Siegel that just managed to work his way up the field. And I don't know whether he, I didn't go back and look at the practice sheets. Was he ever in the top 5 in practice? I don't think so. I
I don't
don't,
recall
nope,
seeing his name that high up now.
nope. And his car, once he got up to the front into the top 10 and the top 5, he was just there.
Mm.
And like he was there on merit, and it just I don't know if they found something, they did something to the car after qualifying that just made a vast improvement, but through pit sequencing, he got up to the front and was just there. And was never going to be a threat to win, but awesome to see that he had such a great day.
Yeah. I can't really add anything to that, to be honest with you. It's
Yeah.
nice to have these drivers getting these good days, and it reinforces what we've said is one of the reasons we love IndyCar is that, you get these drivers where, okay, maybe they're not going to win the race, but they can still have their moment to shine. And that's really nice to have that throughout the field. We got that with Grosjean last week. We get it with Simpson this week in a way. It's success looks different in for different drivers, and that's the kind of progress we want to see from Simpson that we talked about all season long.
Mhm. And let's not forget that Simpson finished in the top 10 at our last oval that we went to.
That is true. Fourth place, wasn't
Finished
it?
ninth place.
Ninth place. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, things
Uh,
muddled.
but yeah, so he obviously might have a little bit of
Something's
a
clicking.
surge. Yeah, something's clicking here late in the season, which is what you always want. You want to go into the off season, um, especially when you're being retained and staying with
Hmm.
your team. You want to end on a high note, and I think he's doing what he needs to be doing. Maybe next season we'll be talking about Kiffin Simpson doing Kiffin Simpson things.
There's an intriguing question that I want to ask you before we move on that you don't have to answer, but at this rate, with the bad luck that Malukas is having, are we going to see Simpson win a race before Malukas? That's the question you're going to be potentially debating in the off season.
No, I won't. I can say right now, we'll see Malukas win a race before Simpson. Now, do I think that
Uh,
Simpson is capable of winning a race? Anything can happen, given, any given driver can win on any given Sunday, as my mom would say. Um,
well, never
and
ever wanted him to win on this Saturday more.
Meyer Shank Racing, probably only a weekend that they like to forget. Marcus Armstrong qualifying in fifth and finishing 17th, and Felix Rosenquist qualifying 10th and finishing in 19th.
Yeah, Rosenquist is taking himself out of the race more than anything there. Bit of a bizarre one on replay, just
Yeah,
just does it all by himself. And then Armstrong makes me very glad that I benched him from my team after Markham because I wanted him to have one good race. I was happy with that. I didn't want to push my luck, and I'm glad I
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
Just a very
Armstrong,
clumsy move from
yeah,
him.
yeah. I mean, it was such a high risk move that even before you got to the corner, before you got to the braking zone, you knew it wasn't going to work.
It
And
was like the instant
uh,
with Newgard in Markham at the hairpin. You could see it coming a
yes,
mile off.
yeah, yeah.
This ain't gonna
Uh,
work, buddy.
that's not going to work, man. And it just, we haven't seen a lot of incidences on track this year. Not as many as I feel like we've seen in the past, where you're like, that was an idiot move. Why are you doing something stupid like that? This was
Yeah,
definitely one of those incidences where it's like Marcus Armstrong gets the bonehead move
we have a new
of the
award for
weekend.
this
Yeah,
weekend, don't they?
yeah. And for me, I'm just like, you took out uh, a driver that was having a good day with
Hmm.
Reese VK, and
And
then
Rasmussen was doing all right up to that point as well.
Rasmussen was doing pretty good as well. He was able to continue, but that kind of
He wasn't able to
ruined
stay up
his
as high
day.
as his
Yeah,
qualifying position. He did
yeah,
surprisingly well in quali, and then all of that is undone. And
yeah,
14th for Rasmussen on a street circuit isn't bad for him. But
yeah,
again, you just are left wondering what could that have been.
yeah. Rosenquist's incident was bizarre, and he was just kind of he ran over we'll call it debris on the track from the McLaughlin incident late in the race. And when McLaughlin hit the tire barrier exiting the corner, it tore the banner off of the tire barrier, and
Yeah.
it was laying on the track, and Rosenquist ran over it. And
Just
um,
mad that that has such an impact at the same time, but
it
also
really
mad that
is.
someone with Rosenquist's experience wasn't able to save it in some ways. We saw that a
Yeah,
lot from some of these experienced drivers where they just weren't that experienced in
right.
their
Yeah,
handling.
and I think it was something you couldn't see on the track. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to see
Hmm.
that banner laying flat there. Uh, Unfortunate for him that he got caught out in what probably ruined a top 10 day for him. Um, he ended up he was a lap down, wasn't? Yeah, he was a couple laps down. Oh no, he was the last car on the he was the last car one lap down. Uh, so
Not a great
yeah,
accolade, anyway.
no, it's not. But speaking of Christian Rasmussen, Ed Carpenter Racing, um, Christian Rasmussen qualified fourth. Great qualifying effort, finished 14th after the incident with Armstrong, and Alexander Rossi qualifying 15th and finishing 12th.
Better day for the team than we've seen recently, which is quite bizarre when you think about it. I think
It kind of is, yeah.
after their recent run of form, or lack of it, both cars finishing outright in the circumstances that they did, um, is a success in some ways. So I'm hoping this is a semi-soft reset for the last three races, and we can just we're heading into ovals now with Rasmussen. Don't need to say any more on that.
Yep.
And then I think Rossi does decently in Laguna Seca from memory. So I think the less I say about it, the better for
Yeah.
hope of not wanting to invoke any voodoo kind of stuff on them.
Yeah. For me, Rossi spent a lot of time in the top 10. He finished in 12th, which, not everybody can have a top 10 day, but he did spend a good amount of time running the top 10. Definitely wasn't a contender, but a decent day. I mean,
He has this on street circuits, though. He doesn't do abominably bad, but he never does exceptionally well either. He's just kind of
yeah,
there in the background, does all right, which is fine.
yeah. Rasmussen wins the award for busiest pit crew of the race.
Yeah,
He pit 12 times
you're saying
during
award
this
putting
race.
a lot. You got nothing on this guy.
Yeah. So, you average that out, he was pitting about every 12 laps. Uh,
You've got to
so,
get that practice in somehow.
yeah, I know it was a long race, but 12 stops seems a little excessive. Obviously,
Kirkwood has the record of being the only ever winner of the Freedom 250. Well, Rasmussen's going for a different kind of record that he wants to have for the record
yeah,
books.
yeah. I'd have to go back through and see.
When was the last race someone had more than 12 pit stops?
Somebody had more than 12 pit stops.
I mean, it's a decent number on any stretch, I'd say. Anyway,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you're looking at something like the Indy 500, you're going even there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
12
If you
is
can't get
that's a lot.
yeah, the Indy 500, even a long race like that, if if you if you spend 4 or 5 pit stops trying to fix the car, it's not getting fixed, and you're done for
Yeah,
the day.
yeah.
So I would have to guess it would have to have been another street course or road course. I can't imagine an oval somebody having that many, but I'll have to dig back through the records and see if I could find that stat. But uh, yeah, unfortunate day. He was even with 12 pit stops, he was the first car one lap down.
Which again just seems
So
very on brand considering their recent run
yeah,
of form.
right. A.J Foyt, Santino Ferrucci qualifying 25th and finishing 21st in Cal Colette, starting 11th and finishing 9th.
You have a note here saying about Ferrucci doing good, staying out of everyone's way. Um, but I believe towards the end of the race, he was getting quite in the way of Will Power, I think it was. I
Oh,
seem to
yeah.
remember that on the,
Yeah.
the broadcast, and commentators were not thrilled with him on that particular occasion. It's one thing early on in the race because they had made that comment, I think also about him when he was in with the gaggle of other cars going, when Kirkwood and Lundgaard were trying to get past them, going, there's no need for them to get out of the way. This is an F1. Blue flags aren't a thing in the same way. But then in the race, they go, it's the dying laps of the race, and the race leaders are trying to get out of the way. What are you doing? I just went, yeah, this feels about right.
Yeah.
So even with the issues he was having, I looked at those results and thought, again, considering the luck that Collette has just generally, this is where I would expect him to finish without the bad luck from what I have seen potential wise. I've started to get this kind of idea of this is what he's capable of. We just don't get the chance to see it. Whereas for Ricci this year, I look at that and I go, looks about right. he's not had a particularly impressive year for me. I know we've had this back and forth on him a couple of times earlier in the season, but in terms of Ferrucci in 2026, this looks about right for me.
Yeah, this season for Ferrucci has not been uh, his best ever. He's 17th in the points right now. I don't see him making a whole lot of moves up in the
Not
standings.
forwards anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, for Colette, as a driver that's you know in desperate need of a good finish
We said
and
this after
showcasing,
Markham, right?
yeah, showcasing what he's capable of. We're still not certain where he's going to be next season. If he's going to be with this team, is he going to be, trying to find another seat somewhere? Um,
But with a
he's
race like this, to qualify that well and make positions and to finish
yeah,
inside the top 10, good. No
yeah,
hopes.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
a little bit like we were saying with Dixon and Newgarden, just kind of like, no one notice I'm here, please.
yeah,
I just wanna
yeah,
make it so badly.
yeah,
Armstrong, stay away.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, it was good to see him get that top 10. I think we finally got a taste of what we could expect from Colette. Um, and I hope that we can see him again next season. And like I said, I have a feeling that he's going to be with this team again next season. Um,
Do
we
you think I
talked about
hope
it
that?
last week. Yeah, we talked about it last season. AJ Foyt is not a team that cycles through drivers like Arrow McLaren, where you don't know who your driver lineup's going to be
Hmm.
uh, from season to season. This team they take a driver and they stick with them for several seasons. So I hope that he's back next season. I do hope that it's with this team. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. Mick Schumacher qualifying 24th, finishing 11th. Graham qualifying 20th and finishing 13th. And Louis Foster starting 16th, finishing 18th.
Important to note as well, because you know I would, that qualifying was also the result of the engine penalty, and I think Simpson had the same thing, which is why he was so far back in the pack as well.
And
They took new
Ferrucci. Yeah.
engines,
Yeah.
and from that, yeah, well, yeah. Um, and but I thought he was another driver who did what Ericsson and was doing in a way, and just carving his way through the field pretty nicely. And we were talking about him after Markham going, oh, we've got a new street circuit again next week. This is going to be a bit dicey potentially. But he bounced back really nicely and, has one of his best results this season. A shame it couldn't have been that 10th place. Damn you, Grosjean. But what can you do? Again, former Haas drivers against one another for that
Yeah.
last spot in the top 10. Um, and yeah, Rahal, I think he's gone back to um, kind of the form that we're more used to him doing. From we were treated to him on the podium quite a lot early on the season, but
Mm.
he's now not devolved back into what we were used to, but he sort of has in a way. Um, which I did find a little bit funny because he was very hot on this whole weekend, this whole race. He's been very vocal in the media about why he's loving the venue, the racing, the whole event as a whole, which was a bit polarizing from what I saw from the reaction he's got from it. So for them to him incredibly mid-race goes, how's he going to feel about it afterwards? Is he going to just
Yeah.
stick to his guns, or is he going to go, yeah? On that side of things, yeah, didn't go brilliantly. And Foster, yeah, it's again a little bit like we've seen with a few other drivers. It's what we've come to expect, so it's not too surprising. I think we weren't expecting another Markham. The last
Right.
time, if we'd said that after Road America last year, we'd have been waiting over a year for that to happen again. So I don't think we're going to be getting used to that with
Yeah.
him anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Schumacher just was like, he was one of those drivers, just kept his head down and did what he needed to do. And I think you're right. I mean, this is kind of the form that we expect from Graham.
I'm,
Uh,
sorry, we're just going back slightly. Do my ears deceive me? Was that almost a compliment from you on Mick Schumacher?
Almost.
I've got to make a
Almost
note
did.
of the date and the time when this happens because it is a rarity.
I still give more praise to Nolan Siegel and Kiffin Simpson,
Well,
but
that's fine. That's fine. I'm not asking for that. Don't worry. Not unreasonable.
but yeah, Foster, we we're getting to the point where we're kind of moving him into the same frame of why are we keeping this driver? What's the benefit of keeping him? And it's like
I think you finally arrived in my camp on that one. I've been
I,
there for a
I'm
little
I'm
while
I'm
already.
I'm starting to arrive. After last weekend, yeah, he was charged into the field, had an accident, but that's how you want to. If you're going to exit a race, that's how you want to exit a race. Or if you're going to have a bad day, that's the way you want to have a bad day, not you know
Yeah,
running
not
18th
this.
and a lap down and being a chicane for part of the race. So, but we're kind of finding that's kind of the norm for him, and so um, we've got
I
three
told you his
races
future's
left,
in
and
NASCAR, Nate. His future's in NASCAR. I don't know why you're not listening to me on that one.
I maybe it's the mustache that's driving you to say
It's
he's a
mainly the
NASCAR driver,
mustache.
but
90% the mustache.
for a driver that also doesn't perform incredibly well on ovals, I don't know why you'd want to send him to a series which is almost all ovals. So
I'm just going to make a seat free at Rahal, basically.
yeah, you just want the open seat. That's what you want. Dayle Coyne Racing. Dennis Hauger qualifying 8th, finishing 15th, and Romain Grosjean qualifying 19th and finishing in the top 10 in 10th.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good weekend again from Grosjean, really. Definitely not his performance from last weekend, but we're talking about Louis Foster going. We're not expecting a repeat of that one weekend to the
Yeah,
next.
yeah,
Not expecting it from Grosjean either. So for him to go up 9 spots, and admittedly some of those were due to
right.
calamities happening, but he had to keep his head down and not be Grosjean in a lot of ways, which is usually he is the one getting involved in these sorts of
Yeah,
incidents, right?
yeah,
So a surprise, but I'm not against it. Aside
yeah.
from the fact that he took P10 away from Mick, which I'm not happy about.
Yeah. I don't think Dennis Hauger really got a feel for this track
No,
at all. I mean, he had great qualifying, but
the one lap
you
pace was there,
noticed,
just not over 250 or 249.9 miles,
yeah.
rather.
Well, and it only took what maybe uh 5 laps, 6 laps to realize that he did not have a P8 car or a top 10
Yeah,
car. He fell back through the field. He's one of the drivers I remember distinctly falling back early and just
you can't even say
car
that
after car.
knock him. It's the
Yeah,
experience of the drivers coming through because we saw that with the likes of Simpson and Siegel and Schumacher. They had no problem rising up to a
right.
position despite the car maybe not being there. Um, we had drivers like Pato, um, like Helga, where it didn't work for whatever reason. And you
Yeah,
go, it's interesting. You can't lean on that as the crutch this time. It's just not your day.
yeah. Dennis did finish one place ahead of Pato, but had 5 less pit stops.
That's just insane.
But yeah,
Oh,
Roman Grosjean, last week when I discovered that he had all of these second place
second
finishes,
places.
and I went, oh wow, okay. But then to back it up with another top 10, it's like, oh well, our I don't want to say quite yet that he's turning over a new leaf and is finally starting to gel with his team, but you're shaking your head no as well. So,
I
but
feel like
it
this.
is.
I'm not confident enough to put him in my fantasy team for Milwaukee.
Yeah, yeah. And I think having back-to-back top tens, finishing on the podium last week in Markham, and um, I'm not ready to say that, oh, we're going to see him in the top 10 in either of the races in Milwaukee, but if we do, I'll be pleasantly surprised. Juncos Hollinger Racing, Renus VK qualifying 17th, finishing 23rd. Stingray Rob qualifying 22nd and finishing 25th. Yeah, this team just did not have a great weekend. No fault
Not
really of
through.
their own.
I was going to say not through the fault of their own. Rob qualifying 22nd, not surprising. DK he can't do miracles all the time. 17th on a new
Right.
circuit, fine. But then, like you say, he gets taken out by Armstrong, not by Rasmussen as he suspected, and was quite vocal about
Oh yeah,
immediately
yeah,
afterwards. Which
yeah.
I was
Whoops.
like, you want to watch that one back.
Yeah,
And then Rob, we are very quick, okay, on many an occasion to throw some hits at him, throw some shade. But on this occasion, not his fault. Nothing he
yeah,
can do on that one. A little bit of karma I felt for St. Petersburg with Mick, where he was just there and he takes Mick out as a result of that, and now it goes like that. That's how that feels, by the way. But yeah, just very unfortunate. Yeah, what else do you say?
yeah. I mean, VK, we talked about earlier, had potentially a top five car and
Yeah,
got taken out in that incident
bottom
with
five instead.
Armstrong. And yeah, just unfortunate. And this definitely a weekend I'm sure that Juncos Hollinger is going to want to be quick to forget. So, hot, not, and hard luck awards. Uh, I didn't take a look at these beforehand. This is my first time seeing these notes. Um, and
It's work.
I have
My
to
my
say,
my my uh, my choices are working. Is,
your
is
your
what I
your
can tell from your
choice
reaction.
for hot driver definitely is annoying for me. Go ahead. Turn the
Hey,
floor over to you.
you qualify at the back because of an engine penalty, and you carve your way up through the field when no one's expecting you to do that off the back of a tough weekend in Markham. Everyone's going on about how great Andretti are. Yes, that's a slight dig at you as well for that one, which is fine. And if you're giving honourable mentions to some of the drivers that you are, then I feel like you're missing out on one in particular. And that's Mick Schumacher. So 24th to 11th keeps his head down. One of his better results of the season. Nice bounce back after Markham. That's not hot, mate. I don't know. Maybe you need your head looking at. Maybe you've been out in the sun too long in DC.
I sat in the shade pretty much the whole weekend. So, uh, I mean, yes, he had a good race. He didn't do typical Mick Schumacher things, and so
You could have just ended it with he had a good race. You didn't need to add any more to that.
he had a decent race. For me, second weekend in a row, and very uncharacteristic for me,
Mm,
Andretti Racing as a whole. I mean,
yeah.
you
First,
think
third, and fourth one. What do you want?
it's hard to top last weekend in Markham for this team, but they somehow managed to
They
do it
managed
here.
it.
And
I say, well, what do you want? They obviously want one, two, three. I don't know if that's doable between now and the end of the season, but if any team could, they look the most put
they
together out
look
of
like the
everyone.
most
So
capable. Absolutely. And maybe we'll get to Milwaukee and we'll get a Penske 1, 2, 3. Lucas winning his first race. Who knows? I can
man can
finally
dream,
put
right?
can finally put Lucas in my hot category. I had a hard
I
time
still want
picking.
Simpson to come first and Lucas second now, just to annoy you.
I had a hard time picking. Yeah, it would tie him with Grosjean for most second
True.
places without a win. So
Yeah.
I had a really hard time picking these categories this race and all three categories. In my hot, I had to also give honorable mentions to Lundgaard, Simpson, and Siegel. Three
Mm.
drivers that with especially in regards to Lundgaard and Siegel, who are drivers looking for rides for next season, and with Lundgaard having another great outing, Siegel, just barely missing out on the top five because Simpson took a top five. Um, you know, career best day for Siegel, doing exactly
Hmm.
what he needs to be doing, right? So, but not hot for me. I had to give to Marcus Armstrong. I mean,
Yeah. You took
we
the choice I wanted to have, but it's just yeah.
it just was just such a dumb move by him and ruined the days of a couple other drivers. You hate to see it, but definitely a not hot weekend for him. I also had to give an honorable mention to Alex Palou.
Mainly
Just
because how often do you get to do that?
I don't get to do it very often, so I got to sneak his name in there. Who are you going with for not hot?
I went for my hot drive from last week. Battle Award. What a difference a week can make, right? Yeah, no, Pato. That was yeah. Issues, no issues. Really, really. This is
Yeah,
what we're doing. No, it's not hard luck. It's just you not being there.
you're just not
Fight
hot.
me.
And then our hard luck. I think we kind of we're somewhat in agreement here. I think our
Mm.
train of thought was pretty much the same. You picked Stingray Rob, and I had him marked as my honorable mention.
Yeah, I was looking at your other choice, your main choice, and I was like, I'm not so sure about that. And I think in terms of literal hard luck, Stingray fits the bill pretty well. Like you can't get much harder on the hit there from just going full speed around a corner to geez, there's a car in the way. Too late.
Well, I think, and the reason why I picked Felix Rosenquist over Stingray Rob for this was, uh, you know, Stingray Rob came around the corner and there was a car in front of him. You can
Mm.
see a car laying out
Yeah,
across the
but geez,
track.
how you kind of need a bit of space and time to be
You
able to
need a
do that. If
little
it's
bit
down
more
the
time.
road, that's one
Yeah.
thing. But if it's
Uh,
right there,
Felix Rosenquist is coming around a turn and sees, probably doesn't see the flat, slippery object that's laying across the track.
he got Mario
So,
Karted. It was essentially as
yeah,
close to a banana
it was a
peel as you're going to
banana.
get.
Yeah, you got the banana, the Mario Kart banana, where people like Rinus VK and Christian Rasmussen got the blue turtle
VK
shell.
would have been a good choice actually for hard luck.
Yeah, they got the turtle shell where Rosenquist just got the banana peel. So, well, we've made mention of it several times. We are going to Milwaukee this weekend,
Your
doubleheader.
favorite venue after Portland.
Uh, it is one of my favorites, but it definitely ranks a lot higher than Portland. Um,
One day.
yeah, no, yeah,
Maybe
you're
not.
gonna have to. They're gonna have to move the track to Portland, Maine, for me to maybe get on board there. But yeah, doubleheader in Milwaukee. We got a race 2:30 on Saturday Eastern Standard Time. Check local listings, and then another race less than 24 hours later, 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. So looking forward to that. Obviously, I love Milwaukee, love that track, love the
It's
race, love the
beautiful.
product. Our grueling stretch to the end of the season continues with a doubleheader. So we're going to have a big episode for you guys next week where we're going to cover both races. And we hope that everybody returns to hear us then.